And we are back one more time.
Back again!
We are the Trauma Guys. I'm Lee.
I'm Fayaz.
And we're here to talk about the dark side of the ring.
Sweet corn
The Road
soda.
Warriors. Now, the Road Warriors for me was the greatest tag team of all time. For me, I've been a Road Warrior fan from day one.
Oh, yeah.
Because when they came out, they were awesome.
Yeah.
They were a destruction crew. And the first time I saw them as a kid, I was mesmerized, even before they started painting their faces.
Yeah.
Right. So we started talking about how they first got into the business and stuff, and they were bouncers at a bar in Minneapolis, Minnesota, which is where they were from. Which seems to be a lot of wrestlers came from this area. Rick Rude, Barry Darso, Mr. Perfect. A lot of people came from this area. They were big, you know, in the wrestling. So they were bouncers at this bar that I guess a lot of people hang out at, and that's what they were known for. But how they first met was that Animal was lifting weights, and Hawk saw him, went over and slapped him on the chest while he's bench pressing, and told him, why is somebody in here benching more weight than me? I'm going to show you how to bench. And that's how they started. He said, I didn't really care for him at first, but I eventually got used to, we started hanging out and getting to know. But, they were all about lifting weights, and they were big guys. I mean, they were big, 280, 300 pounds, and they were lifting weights. And again, like I said, they were working at this bar, throwing people out, and that's where Ole Anderson first saw Animal.
Yeah.
He said he saw him throw a guy out, and the guy did a couple of flips and hit the ground right in front of him as he was walking up to the bar to go in. And he decided, hey, I think I'm going to do something with this guy.
And then, they talked about Hawk and how he came about. And, dude, that guy had a reputation on the street.
For fighting.
That guy had a reputation, man. He'd just walk, wherever he went, he'd walk up to whoever the biggest and baddest guy was in that neighborhood, apparently, and just punch him in the face. He'd just walk up and say, hey, man, are you so and so? And then apparently he just started a fight with the guy, and then he'd beat him up. So I mean, just two really big guys, man. Their whole persona, their outfit, what they exemplified, as far as being, just outrageous, kind of crazy. But then we got to find out, who the crazy one was a little bit as we're going on.
And a lot of that dealt with the fact that, they different personalities, sometimes they work together. But when they first were in Georgia Championship Wrestling, they stuck him with Paul Ellering. And Precious Paul Ellering, honestly, is one of the smartest men in the world, and one of the smartest men I've ever met. He's really, really smart, well-spoken guy. And even way back in the day, guys would talk about how Paul Ellering would be reading the Wall Street Journal in the back and talking about his investments and things that he's doing. He wasn't like the other guys going out and party. He worked out as a wrestler, and he was a wrestler, but he had a business mind as well. So when he took those guys on, they threw him in a van with him, and from then on, he wasn't just their manager on TV. He was their real manager. He got them money. He made sure their contracts were straight, everything that happened, but he also realized that they were kind of a phenomenon. So they didn't stay in an area very long because they were so strong and powerful that's what they were known for. So they moved from area to area, so they didn't grow old with people. People didn't grow old thinking, oh, I don't want to, hey, man, I saw those guys. They do the same. No, they eventually move from territory to territory.
And that's really good thinking if you think about promoting something new, whatever you want to do there, right? If you don't want it to resonate in one area, one town, that sort of thing. You want to make it kind of a surprise type ththing, right? Make it like like it's a special event, like a carnival coming to town, whatever it is, right? But like a special event, so that way, because people in other territories heard about them, at least. Right?
Well, and other guys were scared of them because not only were they stiff and green, but sometimes they didn't play by the rules, and they would just beat the tar out of the guys as they would go in.
Right.
Guys would talk about thinking that they were, and even the toughest guys who people thought were the toughest guys in wrestling, these guys would just come in and destroy. But yeah, they didn't have a lot of things that they were good at that time. They built into something
Right.
eventually. Don't get me wrong, but at that time they were, but those press slams and the stuff they could do, they benched anywhere from 600 to 700 pounds each, close in that range somewhere. And that's a lot of weight, man. I don't care who it is. That's world record areas
Right.
of
Right.
lifting weights,
Definitely.
and they were strong guys, and that's what they did. They came out with brute force. And the first time you heard that Iron Man song, because that was their first song they came out to, was Black Sabbath's Iron Man. When that played and they hit the ring, they slid in and they just started dominating people. And that's what I remember most of all. And even when they were bad guys, I loved them because they were kind of in that gray area. People loved them even when they were supposed to be the heel, and they still would get love, and that's just who they were.
They kind of walked that gray area, right, where they could pick up the fan base wherever it was, man. And as they got bigger, they'd go out and do whatever. But as they got bigger, Hawk got a little crazier, right? Excessive drug use, things of that nature.
Yeah.
He had one fallout, I believe it was in Japan. It's kind of a shame, man, because you look at two guys like that work that hard to get somewhere, and they finally get somewhere. They make it to the big show, and they get those accolades, man. They get big. They're making a lot of money, and then we've seen it so many times. Substance abuse basically ruined it for them.
Yeah. And they talked about, how they had won championships all over the world. They had been everywhere. They went to the WWE the first time. They were doing pretty good. And Hawk screwed around and was unable to perform at WrestleMania. And you could see when you watch that match, he's not himself. Not able to do the Doomsday machine, that the weapon that they use, he couldn't do it. He couldn't get up on the top rope. He could barely function. All these guys are trying to help him through it.
Yeah.
And then he leaves because he's upset. He quits. He goes to Japan.
He goes to Japan and gets a new partner.
Yeah, tries to do the same thing.
He tries to do the same thing.
And Animal's trying to be the good guy. He's trying to stay there, finish out his contract, do what he's supposed to. But he doesn't go find another partner. He doesn't want another partner.
Right.
And he's very upset because Hawk went off and did this, And for a time, those two didn't get along. And Hawk went through a lot of stuff. His drug abuse, his depression, all the things going on. And then when they came back to the WWE wanted to use that. And they wanted to throw an extra guy in the mix to start all this. So, they used Hawk's depression and whatever. And even though it was something real and Animal didn't like it, it was just felt too close to reality of their lives.
Yeah.
And he didn't really want it to go that way.
Yeah, they tried to make a storyline out of it, but at the end of the day, it's you're not really telling a story anymore. It was a real thing, man, and he started. It wasn't just drinking. Cocaine seemed to be a popular thing back then.
And painkillers. A lot of painkillers.
Yeah.
A lot of guys taking painkillers, drinking beer and taking painkillers to kill the pain of, they have this messed up or that messed up, and they don't have the right money to take care of medical situations. But, then he finally did get clean, but it took that fact that Nikita Koloff, who is not really Russian, but the man himself, is a preacher, and he offered them to come to this retreat, and that's what changed Hawk's life. He turned his life over to God. Both of them did, but that changed who he was. He needed that. Some people need those things, and some people need that to open up who they are. So when you disrespect somebody for doing that, and it changes who they are and helps them get out of those situations, don't, because everybody needs something.
Right. Everybody needs something, no matter what it is.
Yeah, and he needed that faith, and it brought him back. He said he was doing well, got married, they were getting another chance back in the WWE, and and then he had a heart attack at 46.
Yeah.
And they said what he was doing. He had a house in Florida. He'd been moving the furniture around.
Yeah.
And he just got tired and told us,
I'm
going to take a nap.
I'm going to go lie down. And that was it, man.
And that's a hard thing for Animal and a lot of the other people to deal with, but at the same time they realized at least he was in a better place at that moment.
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of the drugs and alcohol and stuff probably had a lot to do with the heart attack at 46, doing everything that he went through.
Yeah.
You know, but at least he had moved on to a better life at that moment. Yeah, it's a rough thing to happen and it sucks. Same thing with Eddie Guerrero and those guys. They get sober and then this happens, but they had put their bodies through so much, not just the drugs and stuff, but all the painkillers and also all the beatings and up and down the road and your body, you know, not having time to rest can do that to you. So we love the Road Warriors. I'm a huge animal. To this day, I will always be a Road Warriors fan. I believe, honestly, when they do these lists of greatest tag teams of all time, they should be the top one.
They got to be up there, man.
They have
sure.
To me, they should be number one always. They went everywhere. They were in every organization. They went everywhere, and all the big ones at the time, they were everywhere.
You know, I just want to recap on that, and I'm glad that one didn't turn into cocaine and hookers like the UWF did. But that was one of the best ones yet, man. And the Road Warriors, if they haven't been, are they in the Hall of Fame?
Yes, they are in the Hall of Fame.
And that well deserved. Well, I missed that one, but well deserved, man. Hopefully nobody tries to emulate that. Nobody tries to, be what they were, because there's always only ever going to be
one word. There was a lot of them. There was
Warriors.
a lot of them that tried.
Yeah.
They had the Powers of Pain. They had when Sting and the original Ultimate Warrior, they were Rock and Blade. They were the Blade Runners. They had the same gimmick because they were big guys. They tried to do it in the WWE with the Demolition, and I just think that was a big flop and a half. I never liked Demolition. I always knew that they were trying to be a knockoff Road Warriors and the Legion of Doom. Yeah, that's not what it was about. And you can't, imitation is flattery, but you're never going to be them. And none of those guys were ever as big as the Road Warriors ever were. None of them.
Yeah, the Legion of Doom.
Yeah. Until next time, guys, I'm Lee.
I'm Fayaz. And we're the Legion of Doom.